Karlsson may be on the move, and we have some disappointments and some surprises to talk about, as well as our very exciting Game of the Week segment returns to Western Conference Takeover Tuesday here at Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On NHL. And thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. If you are a late riser or wherever you may be, you could be like in Hawaii or Australia where you're in two separate days. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jess Belmosto, host of Locked On Calgary Flames, joined with my Battle of Alberta partner in crime, Brett Holden of Locked On Oilers. How are you today, Brett?
Oh, I'm not too bad. We were talking before. It's snowing here, but it's not too cold, so I can live with it. My face isn't burning whenever I step outside yet.
Yep, it's supposed to be snowing here in upstate New York. I think overnight or into early morning it's supposed to start. So looking forward to that, of course. But I think we have a lot to look forward to as the NHL season continues to roll on, as we approach the middle of November. And this is kind of where you start to see people get worried, get overly optimistic, or just sit back and enjoy the ride. Erik Karlsson, though, is he going to be able to enjoy the ride, or is he going to be finding a new home in a new school for his kids?
Yeah, you know what? Tough situation in San Jose. I mean, it seemed like maybe as soon as he was traded to San Jose, maybe not necessarily a retirement spot for him because he was in the middle of his prime when he was traded there. But then he signs this big lucrative deal that it doesn't end until 2027, 2028. So 2026, 2027. So now you're taking a look at it and going, oh, okay, and that's a little bit of a nice chunk of change. And now he starts off this year absolutely insane. 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points. You're sitting there going, maybe some teams around the league could potentially use a guy like him. But then you take a look at his salary and you go, how in everything that's holy could any team possibly bring that contract in?
Absolutely. And, general manager Mike Greer said that he will listen to teams if they call about Erik Karlsson, which is huge. Like that in itself, I think is that's almost as mind blowing as that cap hit, because you're like, he has a no trade clause through the 8-year contract. So is he going to, waive it and, get himself out of San Jose, help the team out, but then go and basically weigh down another team? I think even with the cap increase in the next year or two, I don't see a realistic spot for this. I feel like the Sharks are locked in completely, and there's no way, unless they're retaining a solid chunk of this contract.
Yeah, and it's how I see this going down. If it does go down, is there's going to be multiple teams in this.
Yep.
There's going to be in Arizona. There's going to be in Anaheim. There's going to be some team that has cap to eat. There's only 3 teams in the NHL right now who have $11 million in cap space or more, and that's the Anaheim Ducks, the Arizona Coyotes, and the Buffalo Sabres, who are having a pretty decent year. But could they make a move for him? Maybe. They actually have the most amount of cap space in the league. But if again, if they are to move Erik Karlsson, I think there's going to be multiple teams involved, and you have to. It's going to end up being Karlsson to an Arizona to then flip him back to. Imagine if he went back to Ottawa.
That's
Who
what I
needs a
was
defense?
thinking.
You know what? I wouldn't hate it. A team that does need a defenseman. I mean, it sounds like every day I hear something different on them and Jacob Chikrin. So
Mhm.
it would make a lot of sense, kind of. They don't necessarily, they have $4 million in cap space. So if you could flip Erik Karlsson to an Arizona and then immediately flip him to Ottawa. I'm going to take a look at Ottawa's draft picks here because that is really, you're going to have to send obviously the big pieces to San Jose for the deal. And then you're going to have to send a little sweetener for Arizona to take in that salary. So they do have all of their first round picks going up to 2025, second round pick in every year, and as well Washington's second round pick in 2024. So they got some capital to do so. Again, I think it will have to take three teams to do this deal. San Jose will eat some contract.
Mhm.
Arizona or the second team will have to eat contract. And then whoever he goes to will then get like a 25% of the deal. But that's pretty interesting considering how many steps that need to be taken to try and get an older player out of a difficult situation into a good situation, into a situation where he can win, where he can win a cup potentially as well, and potentially settle his kids for a retirement. Because again, this doesn't end until 2027, so he's not exactly a rental.
No, like, this is basically, I feel like, a whole new contract. I mean, granted, this was signed in 2019, I believe 2019,
Yeah,
2018. Yep, June 17th, 2019.
yeah,
So, this feels like, just a whole new mess for a team to get into. I don't particularly think it's smart for teams to go after this. Just because he's hot and streaking right now does not mean it's going to remain that way. And, like we've said, there's still another 5 years.
yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing in 1 year, never mind 5 years. And
I
again, like there's going to be the cap's going to go up as well, so you can kind of look forward to that. My thing is you mentioned it there. You don't know how it's going to go. Well, in the last couple of years, the numbers haven't exactly been fantastic. A and B, he hasn't always been healthy.
No.
In last year, 35 points in 50 games is not too bad, but he only got 10 goals that year, which he already has 10 goals in 17 games already this year. The year before that, in 52 games, 8 goals. In 56 games in 2019, 2020, 6 goals. 53 games in 2018, 2019, 3 goals. He has only scored in the last 5, 6 years more than 10 goals, 10 or more goals in the last 2 years. So is he aging like a fine wine? Maybe, but the key word there is maybe. 35 points, 22 points, 40 points, 45, and his career over the last 5 years, his highest over the last 5 years was 62, and that was back when he was in Ottawa. So is he going to be worth that $11.5 million per year? Obviously, that's going to get sucked down to whatever it is by the time he gets on the team. But he's going to be 37 by the time this contract expires. He's not going to play, I think, until 37. He's way too injury prone. So
Mhm.
I think the cons outweigh the pros to anybody who makes a trade for him, but he is such a helpful team for a team right now that it's kind of tough not to. But then you have to again look at the future.
Is there a GM dumb enough to do this? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
But who? Who is going to be rubbing that one brain cell against their skull to get this thing done? And I it makes sense for like that middleman team, I think,
Mhm.
because if you have cap space to eat and you're really not looking to add other players, but you can get, a first or a second round pick out of it, okay. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. You're getting some sort of capital out of it. And the thing is that it has to be a contending team he goes to, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's going to be definitely something to keep an eye on, and it makes
Yeah.
sense why they're letting it be known now versus, come February when there's 4 weeks to come up with this plan. Now you have like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So we shall see where this deadline brings us and who else could be hitting the market. I think could we finally see Jacob Chikrin on the move too? Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe hell's frozen over by then. Maybe we can finally make a move.
Mhm.
And I mean, you got a good point. That this trade deadline is going to be interesting, especially considering that this is the Connor Bedard draft. This is a draft that is stronger than most drafts over the last couple of years. I mean, a friend of mine and I were reminiscing on the fantastic 2012 draft. Shout out Nail Yakupov. But you got to take there's a lot of things that'll go into this as well. Jonathan Taves will probably be on the move. Patrick Kane will probably be on the move as well. There are a lot of players in this trade deadline that we could see moved. And like Carter Sauchi or Susi, I always have hear different pronunciations, so I apologize. But a defenseman who could be on the move too. Like there's a lot of moving parts in this year's trade deadline. Jess, let's get into a little bit of our surprises here.
Yeah.
This year has not gone to plan at all, I would say. And I would say a
No.
lot of teams are sitting there going, what is happening?
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the exciting parts and some of the interesting starts to the season in just a second. But
Yeah.
first, today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis this year. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at Bet Online. I mean, the Grey Cup is right around the corner, everybody. Why are you not taking a look at the Grey Cup lines? Obviously, Winnipeg is going to be the favorite. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at Bet Online as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. Jess,
Yes.
a lot of interesting things have started going up this year. I mean, Vegas, who has been slated to be one of the more difficult teams to watch this year, with the very interesting goaltending situation, top of the Pacific. The Seattle Kraken are somehow in a playoff spot right now, and the Los Angeles Kings are there as well. Not so much a surprise, but you don't start seeing either of our teams until after those three come out. I mean, there's so many stories out in the Central as well. Like, I don't want to spoil maybe one of them, but on top of that, or Central Division, excuse me, some surprises at the bottom too. We've got some surprises. Just what's something that's kind of poking out at you here?
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, my cat has decided to join me, so sorry if we pick up some extra purring. But I think my biggest surprise is Winnipeg
Mm,
being 9-4-1 right now, sitting third in the Western Conference. I don't know. I don't want to call them a sleeper team, but I feel like they've been in such like a turbulent space for the last few seasons that I certainly didn't expect to see them doing this well, especially this early in the season.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we were talking in the off season, just going, man, this does not look like a good situation in Winnipeg. A new regime, a new head coach. They took Blake Wheeler's C away, and you just really sat there and went, man, this may be in some shambles here, but it's been anything but. You're getting production from guys that you didn't really expect. You're beating good teams, and now they're sitting on top of the division with, again, like you really see just how different the culture is in Winnipeg. Even I don't know if you see their TikTok there, but they have a
Oh.
pretty nice TikTok. Like you see a lot of behind the scenes of the
Mm.
fun parts of them, and you can kind of see like Blake Wheeler doesn't take it at all personally. He's a professional, obviously, but you can just see the camaraderie with the team, and that's really a testament to Rick Bowness this year and just what he's really done to that Winnipeg Jets team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was kind of safe to say that Paul Maurice was kind of maybe sort of an issue
Yeah,
behind the bench.
you can say it.
Um, but now he has uprooted himself and is in Florida, so we'll have to keep an eye on that for all of the Paul Maurice haters or fans out there. But I, I am also just shocked at, you strip your captain of his captaincy and you're still doing well and you're still like there's none of this weird tension, at least that's portraying itself through social media, and they've increased their social media presence as well. So like to me, I'm just thinking like, is this a way to cover up tension,
Yeah,
or is this like a genuine thing? But I winning makes everyone happy.
100%.
I feel that.
That that whole situation with Paul Maurice is really interesting to me. He sat there and said, "You know what? I'm going to take some time. I'm going to step away from the game," and then immediately goes to a contender or
Right.
supposed to be one of the favorites in the league. And then also, oh, that team happens to trade for Matthew Tkachuk. Oh no, the team's weirdly good. And you sit
Right.
there and go, did you really want to take a break, or did you try and find any possible way to get out of Winnipeg? Which, hey, fair enough. I've been to Winnipeg.
I
It's not
I
fantastic.
get
I'm
it.
kidding. I'm kidding. You know what? Not gonna lie, I didn't mind Winnipeg, but don't let anybody else know that. But yeah, I think it's just an interesting situation when it comes to the words that he used and the verbiage just going, it really made it seem like a desolate place in Winnipeg, which again, in the winter, absolutely. But
Right.
I don't know. It just seems weird.
It does.
Yeah.
And do
Um,
you have a surprise?
yeah, I have a couple of surprises. I want to give an honorable mention surprise to the Arizona Coyotes power play. Just if you were to guess
Ooh.
where the power play is for the Arizona Coyotes in the league right now, where would you think it is?
Mm, middle of the pack, but like towards the bottom?
Wrong. Fair enough, though, because I thought too. They
Yeah.
are fourth best power play in the league.
Who's ahead of them?
Dallas, Edmonton, and Colorado.
Oh,
Who is on their power play? Dyson Mayo?
no, seriously, I'm like, Nick Ritchie? Is he having that good of a year?
Yeah,
Is
weirdly
Nick
enough,
Ritchie?
yes. And that's the thing. I think some of the outcomes for Arizona haven't been in their favor. But at the same time, they're sitting here. They're sixth in their division. They're only 2 points behind Chicago, which we thought would also be a desolate situation.
Yeah.
They're a point, or they're even with Nashville right now. They have the exact same record, and they're above St. Louis. Not bad for a team that we sat there going, oh, for a team who traded for Zach Cassian. Let's be real. But their first power play unit is much more impressive than the players that are on there. I mean, let's see here. It was Travis Boyd is the center for their first power play unit. Nick Ritchie's on
Okay.
the right side. Clayton Keller is the star there. But then Shane Gostisbehere and JJ Moser, which is pretty unconventional for a team to use two defensemen on their power play right now, on their first power play, I should preface, and they're converting. That's impressive.
That if I had known that and done a little research, I think that would have definitely be my surprise as well. My biggest one, because that does not, I don't want to say doesn't sit well with me, because that it's like a negative connotation, but I never would have guessed that.
No.
Never. And to be up there with, contenders like that.
And
Are we all underestimating?
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. That's what wins you games sometimes. Not sometimes, that is what wins you games. I mean, that's coming from somebody who's covering the Edmonton Oilers. Special teams can win you games, and it's especially down the stretch. If Arizona is still in that title, or not title contention, if they're still in the playoff contention, hey, hell, why not? You have the cap space to do it. Trade for I almost said Zach Cassian. Trade for Erik Karlsson. Why not?
Right,
All
seriously.
of a sudden, you have an anchor on that power play that's already apparently good.
Right. Wow.
Not bad, eh?
Why not?
Yeah. And they're above Vancouver, Toronto, Boston, Buffalo, Minnesota, Vegas, Seattle, all these teams who are good, who have firepower as well. Those are teams are all above. And to be behind, obviously, Edmonton's had one of the best power plays over the last couple of years. Colorado, I mean, is one of the best teams in the league. Dallas as well has a whole bunch of firepower. I'm looking at Robertson, Sagan, Ben. I mean, they have, it's pretty impressive to take a look and go, Clayton Keller's the best player on this team, and this is where they're at. That's one of my surprises. I think genuinely the top three of the Pacific right now would be my surprise. And again, another quick honorable mention to St. Louis, because what's going on there?
What on earth is St. Louis?
Yeah, but no, I would say my big surprise right now would be the top three of the Pacific Division. Vegas, I mean, not a lot of people had them going too far. I'm still not a big fan of their defensive core, but I think, I mean, Jack Eichel has been what everybody expects Jack Eichel to be as a hockey player. I mean, you sit there in 2015 and you maybe not necessarily look at that draft now, but when going into that draft, if it wasn't for Connor McDavid, I think Jack Eichel goes first overall in every other draft.
Do not tell Paul Marner that, because he thinks his son should have been drafted first.
Yeah, well,
did those two in the draft class, but
hey, you can't account for stupid sometimes, but hey, all the power. I love Marner. He's in a good situation, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Los Angeles, they've had a great start to the year as well. You sit there and yes, we all thought that Los Angeles was going to be a playoff team. They're the second best team in the Pacific right now, 21 points, only 5 points behind Vegas. They do have 2 points in hand, or 2 games in hand, so probably should be better. But you sit there, you have a couple of tough decisions or a couple of tough results that could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And they're doing it with a 36-year-old goaltender. Pretty impressive. And they're a team who's had Drew Doughty in their lineup the whole year as well, which is always big time for those guys, like Brant Clark, who's just cracking into the NHL this year. Obviously, Sean Dursey is still there, Mikey Anderson, and Seattle's in third. I mean, in a year that everybody was kind of writing us off, I had a crossover show with Erica from Locked On Kraken, and we called this team FC Opportunity, because there's a lot of opportunity for this team. Well, the fourth overall draft pick this year, and Shane Wright has played, 2 games since the start of November?
I think so.
So you're sitting there and you're going, maybe there's a lot more to these teams that we gave credit for. And then you get into our teams.
Right. And then Calgary is a mess, but I think they're kind of a hot mess in a good way. But then LA just put up 5 goals against the Flames last night, and it was a fun game to watch, although there were definitely some technical issues with LA's gameplay, but at the same time, I think this is a relatively young group where they're going up against a very seasoned, I don't want to say old team, but more of those veteran players, and they're going to know what to look for. And the turnovers are going to cost any team games. So again, that's just if you're looking for certain things in Anaheim, or not Anaheim, sorry, the Kings games, watch how they carry the puck and watch how they move that puck through the neutral zone, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about.
And that speaks to the young core too, right?
Exactly.
But and that's the thing I think too. I think that gets kind of overlooked. Yes, they're a young core, but think about this young core. If they keep having success in the next 3-4 years, they could be a very scary team to go up against, especially in the playoffs. If they keep their team tight, if they keep their relatively the same core, Cal Peterson has the natural integration to being the starter. We could see another dynasty in the Los Angeles Kings happening right in front of our eyes.
Right. And, I wish this is one of those things where you could kind of freeze Jonathan Quick,
Yeah.
let him keep winning and doing all that. But, like you said, Cal Peterson, I don't want to call him the next Jonathan Quick, because that is, those are some very big shoes to fill. But you're coming up right behind him.
Yeah.
You're basically groomed to be the next Jonathan Quick in that organization. But we will have to see. We'll check back in, I'm
Yeah.
sure, because this Western Conference standing contender picture look a heck of a lot different come around the time of the trade deadline. I think we were right in our predictions when it came to saying the Pacific Division would be a lot more fun to watch than the Central, but
Yeah.
that's okay because we
Hey,
love
don't let them know
everyone
that.
here. Yeah, we love everyone here. But before we move on to our game of the week and watch of the week, I do want to talk to you all about our next sponsor. And this episode is also brought to you by Simply Safe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On NHL listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't have to miss it. Or you won't want to miss it, rather. I'm very sorry about that. You don't want the wet bandits breaking into your house. You don't want Kevin McAllister. You don't want to have a home alone situation going on here. So, in an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get a priority police response. That is excellent. And I think, especially around the holidays, you want to keep your home locked, safe, and secure. So why not use Simply Safe and you'll get a bargain? Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so do not wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. We're gonna sound like such homers.
Are we? I think so, and that's always my biggest fear. Is so I just want to preface this next section here that I hate sounding like a homer, and that's why with my yes, it's a Jack Campbell jersey, but I just want to this is the Texas Stars. So I'm terrified to sound like a homer, but here we are. It sounds like we're going to be homers.
But you know what? That's fine because then we can tell everyone to come listen to our shows at Locked On Flames and Locked On Oilers because I might be slightly biased here, but I think we have some fantastic coverage of one of the biggest rivalries in NHL history. So,
Absolutely.
Brett,
Yes.
who is your game of the week?
Yes. So once again, I am going to sound like a homer here, but I think this is going to be not necessarily a turning point in the season for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think this is going to be a very important game, not only for the Edmonton Oilers, but for the entire Pacific Division. Let's be real. Going into this season, everybody had either the Calgary Flames or the Edmonton Oilers at the top of the Pacific Division. Well,
Good choices.
they're not. Neither of them are. It's the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Vegas Golden Knights
Boo.
are in Edmonton. Boo! Yeah, expansion teams suck.
You heard
Uh,
it here.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But Vegas Golden Knights are going to be in Alberta, in Edmonton this weekend. And I think this is going to be the biggest test for the Edmonton Oilers. They need to beat divisional rivals. Yes, they've been on the road. They've been in Washington. They've been in Florida. They've been in Tampa Bay, which is also in Florida, surprisingly enough. They have a very important game coming up against the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada. Who's going to be the goaltender? Will it be Stuart Skinner? Will it be Jack Campbell?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the second line winger next to Leon Draisaitl for the third straight game going, is it going to be Holloway? Is it going to be Fogle? Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if Klim Kostin gets a chance at some point here on Draisaitl's wing. There are questions going into it, this game. And if the Edmonton Oil, the biggest thing for the Edmonton Oilers right now is consistency. They need to get their feet underneath them and keep going. That starts with Jack Campbell. Stuart Skinner gets the game as a second straight game on Wednesday against the LA Kings. Do I expect him to play against the Vegas Golden Knights? No, not right now. So that would mean the net is probably going to be Jack Campbell's. I know I hear all of the teeth chattering on Edmonton Oilers fans in Oilers fans' mouths right now. I understand. But if the Edmonton Oilers are able to get a solid performance out of this, I think this is not only going to be the start of the season for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think it's going to be the start of the season for the Pacific Division. The Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames start to get their feet underneath them. By the end of the year, I don't think the top three is going to be Vegas, LA, Seattle. I think Edmonton and Calgary are going to be in it.
I like that pick. I like it. I think that you're right. That is, I think the biggest thing for Edmonton and Calgary is learning to beat your divisional rivals, especially the good ones, and not, dumping all over San Jose, which the Flames can't do. The Flames can't do that. But, that is definitely a fantastic Hockey Night in Canada matchup. The Flames, which is my game to watch on Saturday against the Florida Panthers, are playing at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that is going to be a great game, a great storyline there between, Huberdeau and Uyghur returning and Matthew Tkachuk. There was a fantastic article that came out today from The Athletic. I believe Julian, is it McKenzie? I think I'm probably not remembering his last name. There's so many writers I follow, but he had a great article of how this trade came to fruition and, to break down the story, like just taking you through those days of, Tkachuk telling Brad Treliving that he wants to be traded and that he doesn't want to be here long term. And, I think both teams are incredibly competitive. Right now, the Panthers are tied for third in the Atlantic with the Lightning with 8-6-1, 17 points. The Flames have kind of had a bit of a shaky start. Nothing to be overly concerned about, I would say, but go have some fun. Go enjoy the sun, the beach, and then probably return back to a foot of snow. But just and plus, if you're in Edmonton or Alberta, you are it's going to be a nice afternoon game, 2 p.m., a lunchtime game, and you get a nice little nap in before the Battle of Alberta. Oh my gosh, no.
Feels like
Well, I
it.
guess it's like a Battle of Alberta, but just
Yeah, why not?
one team. But a Battle of the Pacific Division here, basically, with Edmonton and Vegas. But I think that both of those games are going to be incredibly fun to watch. I love when teams go to the opposite coast, because I think it's just such like a culture shock, whether it's like, oh, I live on the ocean, to, oh my God, there's mountains, it's freezing, what is this? And vice versa. So, I think it'll be a nice trip for the Flames, and hopefully they'll bring home a few more wins than last time.
Yeah, no, I like that. Just some transparency. We right now, as of recording this, the Florida Panthers are up 1-0 on the Capitals. They have 17 shots in the first period to Washington's 5.
Great. Great.
A team that averages 40 shots per game. Sam Bennett, the Edmonton Oilers were just there. Sam Bennett, former Calgary Flames, scored both goals against the Oilers there. So, yeah, this is going to be, I'm excited for that one. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I always I loved Sam Bennett. I didn't cover him for long, but like seeing him be traded and find himself and find his game in Florida has been so nice. And what the Panthers and Sam Bennett needed. So can't hate a man for doing what's best for him. And that also goes for Matthew Tkachuk, but Matthew Tkachuk is a dirty player, and I'm so happy I don't have to defend him anymore, because that is not what I'm here for. That is not my responsibility. So Armando from Locked On Panthers, that is all on you. And thank you all for hanging out with us today. Brett, where can everyone find you, your show, and anything else you want to throw in before we wrap up today's episode?
Yes, you can find me personally at The Real Holden 40. That is on all social medias, including my WWE.com account, where apparently we can see Jess turn heel on Matthew Tkachuk. That was wild. I didn't see that coming. But you don't care about me, you care about the show. So you can find Locked On Oilers on Twitter at Locked On Oilers. You can find it on all of your podcasting apps, wherever you find your podcast. Plus, we are also on YouTube as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? You get to see one of the coolest jersey collections ever, even though I only recycle about 7 of the ones I have. But either way, that is also at Locked On Oilers. Throw us a subscription if you want, please. What about you, Jess?
You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. That is also my Instagram. That was not my AIM username back in 2006, though. I do remember that. Yeah, that was quite a time. But you can also follow the podcast, my podcast, Locked On Flames, wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as on Twitter at LO_FlamesPod, and on Instagram, Locked On Flames. And I have a co-host now. Nick is fantastic. Literally just like the coolest person to work with, besides Brett, because he is my weekly partner in crime as well, here at Locked On NHL for our Western Conference Takeover Tuesday, since we are no longer Western Conference Wednesday.
What is that?
We will see you all next week.
Shout out Dylan Gunther.